Dear Basia, it is Thursday night, but will be Friday by the time you see this. And today we are talking about, okay, we're not exactly talking about Parker and Winthrop, but we are talking about co-writing, which is what Parker and Winthrop is, essentially. For us, at least. This is something Liz asked us about because she's never done co-writing before. A couple caveats before I get started with this, because you guys had a lot of questions, and I'm sure there will be more as we continue this project, and I'm sure our answers will develop as we go along. Remember, we're really just getting started on this. We started outlining last winter. We started outlining in like December, maybe even November. Was it November? Either November or December, brainstorming a little before that, so like October-ish. We started writing in January, so we've only been writing for about a month. And this week, just this week, we changed just about everything. So, you know, like you do. So bear that in mind. The second caveat, so B, if you will, Basia and I have worked a lot together. I don't mean professionally, we've never worked the same job, but we've worked on a lot of things together. In March of 2013, we started Dress Lizzie Bennett Diaries for Less, which was a fashion blog focused on finding cheaper alternatives to the costumes from the Lizzie Bennett Diaries. Good times. Since then, we've run multiple blogs and websites and started different projects and, you know, maintained constant internet contact, which gives us the term codependent internet relationship. I was trying to be serious about it, but it's really just hilarious. We have like 4 years of collaborative spirit between us, so this is going to be very different for us than it would be for other people. In any case, you guys had a lot of questions, so let's get started. Liz, since you started us off on this track, let me find a post-it note. I've tried to record this like 4 times, so this is why everything's out of order. It used to be quite orderly, and then I had to restart this because I forgot things upstairs. Like my notebook. Kinda need that. Okay, your first question, which was echoed by my friend Jess in Ireland and Emmeline, my sister, is how do you divide the work? Essentially, at its heart, we are dividing the work chapter by chapter. So Basia wrote chapter 1, I wrote chapter 2, and then I wanted to write a little bit of chapter 3 because there was a scene going on in the beginning of that chapter that I really wanted to have my hands on because I feel very possessive of 2 particular characters in that scene. And Basia finished chapter 3 and was going to write chapter 4, and then we were going to go back to chapter by chapter. However, this week we've changed everything, so now the way it'll look on, hopefully by the time we finish this draft, will be that Basia has already written chapter 1, we just reshaped it a bit, and then we're making a new chapter for chapter 2. So Basia's working on that right now since it was her turn to write, and then what I have written will become, in some form, chapters 3 and maybe a bit of 4. And then we'll pick it back up at chapter by chapter. The second question you asked is, do you outline? And the answer is yes. We outline a lot. This will play into what Mariah asked. You also asked her, are we making up? We are also always making things up. So hopefully we'll get more of the book outlined this weekend. We're meeting up on Sunday for brunch and probably tea because it's us for outlining purposes. So stay tuned. There will be more updates to this. But we do outline. We outline a lot, which is why I have my handy dandy notebook here. So the middle of this book, the first bit is all like characters and places and settings and details and things that might not make it into the book, but you know, they might be necessary. But this middle half is all outlining. You can see that there are 3 pages. That is because we outlined 2.5 chapters and then changed everything. So moving right along, we do outline, and we have since changed outlining. I hope I didn't just throw the one I needed. Okay, I didn't need that one. Okay, Liz also asked, what do we do when we disagree? The answer is we don't disagree that much because our process has been honed over 4 years of collaboration. So what we usually do, and this applies to character development, it applies to character relationships, it applies even, quite frankly, to the plot, is we just throw a lot of ideas out there and then we see what sticks. And usually what sticks is what the other person is like, oh my gosh, yes, that thing that you mentioned, that's exactly what we need for this, and then throw something back. So this has been really fun this week because we've been adding and changing our plot, adding to and changing our plot a lot. So it's been a lot of back and forth with, you know, this detail or that detail, or well, could we do this? No, but could that work? And then, no, that earlier thing, we could bring that back in because we're changing X, Y, and Z. So now we have A, B, C, and D. So it's been really fun. Mariah, you asked, how frequently do we pass edits or notes? And the answer is always. We are constantly talking about this project, whether it's the outline or the characters or the plot or the chapter details or the future road trips that they're going to take together. It's constantly on our minds, essentially. So because we are almost constantly in contact, because of our codependent internet relationship, this makes that very easy. So we are constantly editing and constantly changing and constantly adding details and things. Jess asked who writes what and how's that decided. Andrea asked how do we keep character voices consistent, which Mariah also had something about. How do we divide up our characters and relationships, and how do we keep the voices consistent? That's something that we're working on. Like I said, we've only really written like 3-ish chapters at this point. So we're still figuring out how to make our voices sort of be cohesive. But I think we're gonna go along just fine with it. Between me editing Basia's and Basia editing mine, because we already think pretty similarly on certain things, particularly when we're writing and in our style of talking, that helps a lot. So it means that we understand where the other person is coming from and they understand where we're coming from, and it means that it's a lot easier to edit without stepping on anyone's toes, and it's a lot easier to be like, hey, I think this would work better, do you think that would be okay, you know, but we haven't done a ton of like in-depth editing yet, so I think that'll be where mostly everything gets wrinkled out, is once we finish a draft and can go back and be like, okay, we need to make this voice a little bit more consistent here at this point, and that voice a little bit more consistent here. And that's honestly more of a tone thing and less of a voice thing, because I think as far as characters go, we've done pretty well so far in keeping the voices consistent between chapters with the same characters. So I think, Basia, correct me if you think I'm wrong on that. This is really gonna be kind of boring because a lot of this is just Basia and I talk all the time, guys, like all the time. I don't think you understand how codependent we are online. Oh my gosh, like it's constantly sending each other links and ideas and, this might be helpful. We're writing all of this in a Google Doc and it's actually saved in a shared Google folder. So we have a folder for like resources and images and things for reference, you know, like books, websites, pictures, all that sort of stuff. We'll have it all in one spot as well as in our handy dandy notebooks. So that's helpful. But yeah, so we have draft 1 and now we have take 2 as our second draft, which is so far a chapter and a half long. But what else? Mariah asked about, Mariah asked how do we keep each other accountable for our work? And quite frankly, I think the answer to this is partially the codependent internet relationship that's been developing for 4 years. And I think my mom's iPad is ringing. I wonder who's trying to call her. Emmeline, is that you? She's at a play, which is why she's not here. Anyway. Okay, so how do we keep each other accountable? The answer to this is we have highly tuned guilt complexes. I'm only half kidding. Basia and I are both pretty responsible and we understand when the other one's really busy. So again, we've been collaborating for 4 years. So that's really where that comes in handy. I think that's about it. Other than character development. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bosch, but essentially what happened when we were developing these characters was that I got really attached to Imogen and Basia kind of got really attached to Annabelle Lee. So that balanced out well. I got really attached to Patrick as she is and she kind of created Stringfellow. So yeah, we have a character named Stringfellow in our book, which is not a made up name. You might think it is, but it's not. I found it somewhere with some guy who ran a literary magazine in like 1920s. Hilarious. When it comes to character development and plot, we just throw things back and forth all the time. Pretty much anything goes. We have thrown out references to Ozymandias and Samuel Taylor Coleridge and Darth Vader and what else? The Shining. Puns, really bad puns. You know, this seems like such a weird thing to talk about because it just came about so naturally. We were like, oh, of course, we should write a murder mystery together. Why wouldn't we? Planning this for ages, quite frankly. It feels like a lot of what we've been doing is building up to this. Honestly, when I told Emmeline that we were doing this, she was like, it's about time. And I was like, touche. So if you're gonna co-write, it helps if you're already deeply entrenched in collaborating with the other person. I I just feel like I've done a really bad job of answering these questions. I'm sorry. Our creative process is literally throw everything out there and see what the other person likes and that you also like in equal degrees, and then see what happens from that. A giant mess. It's a very organized mess, don't get me wrong, but when we start, it's a lot of like ridiculous ideas, which I took a seminar on designing, it was called Design Your Life, and it was, I guess, 2 years ago now. And essentially what the seminar taught me was when you're brainstorming, you have to go crazy before you can go realistic. The crazier the better, and then you can sometimes use some of the crazy ideas and tone them into something that works. And that's basically what Basia and I do. I wish I could show you guys some of our G-chats, but essentially what they boil down to is a couple weeks ago, put it this way, I was trying to come up with a minor character name, and so I asked Basia for help because she's my co-writer. What do you think about, this name? And she's like, and then threw back another name, and then so on and so on and so on, until at the same time, we offered the same name. And that's the sort of thing that makes this easy, is that Basia and I tend to end up at the same point. So, Bosh, it is a pleasure as always to be writing with you, whether that be a blog or, a murder mystery. So, here's to you, my friend. I will see you on Sunday, and then hopefully you will be able to answer these questions a little bit better than I have on Monday.